Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Middle and High School Course Professional Learning on Community on the Georgia Department of Education platform. This platform was created for educators to collect, collaborate, and support one another. Be sure to set up your notifications to your liking and check back to engage in discussion as often as you wish. Please share this information with your colleagues so we may continue to grow and share beneficial information specific for middle and high school choral education. The more colleagues active yields more opportunity for us to share and grow from one another. And be sure to register at the Georgia Department of Education community platform if you have not done so yet. My name is Brandy Dent, and I am your virtual PLC Middle and High School Course lead. Webinar 8 is all about the great beyond, the activities that our students will engage in outside the classroom. We're going to talk about three main focuses, one being field trips, concerts, and lastly, fundraisers. So this is our webinar A, and it's all about field trips. Now, there comes a time when you'll have to take your students somewhere. It may be a short trip, it may be a turnaround, it may even be overnight. But before you do anything with this field trip, make sure that you get it approved first. So before you decide to go on a field trip, think about a couple things. Your who. Think about, is this going to be an audition group? Is it going to be a specific grade level? Or are you going to allow the entire choir to go? Your next question you should ask yourself is what? Why are you going on this trip? Are you wanting to take your students to go to a specific performance? Are they performing themselves? Which is there something that you would like for them to witness? Or is it just that it's something maybe that you could do virtually and have them listen in on? Whatever the case, make sure you have those details provided. The next thing, think about when. Make sure that you look at your school's calendar and know what sporting events or any other conflicts that may be going on. Make sure you know that what students you have that you need to go, especially if it's for a performance. Make sure that you know what students are in what groups and if they're going to be needed in another particular extracurricular activity. And of course, check the weather because your wind could be determining a factor in, if you could perform outside or whatever the case. Just know what's going on with the weather when you decide what you want to do. And of course, where the distance matters. Some districts you may get charged more to get a school bus if you're going a certain length. I know in my particular district, if we're going out of state, we have to get a charter bus. We can't take a school bus. So just make sure you do that so that you can also calculate the estimated time of arrival. You want to factor in traffic and all those things. So make sure you know where you're going and know what's along the route. Specifically because you might have a particular place where you want to eat. You need to call the manager at that restaurant or what have you. So just always know where you're going and places where you can stop or what have you for restroom and so forth. And the big question that a lot of district asks is, why are you going? Like, what does this mean? Is it a sanctioned event, or is it really necessary for your students to meet their standards with you going? So keep your standards in mind so that you can give them a why. Usually, if you've answered all these questions and it's justifiable, you'll guarantee an approval. But always, before you plan a trip, especially before you express anything to your parents or your students, unless you've let them know that you're waiting for it to get approved, just make sure you get that approval first. After you're done with that part of their field trip, once it's approved and on paper, a lot of times they'll either assign you a driver or you will have to secure your driver yourself. I personally like saving money, so I love to get my coaches on board, or I find the teachers or the people in my district that have CDLs and we go for it. So make friends with your coaches. They're happy to help you when they can. You might need to work a few basketball or football games in return, but it's always great to have a coach that's right there from your school going. I appreciated mine. And lastly, if it's a teacher or if it's somebody, they're probably going to want to be out of the classroom for at least a day if you can cover it with your admin. But if it's after school, give them a meal, give them a gift card. They'll take you wherever you want to go. So just make sure that you secure your driver with your district or within your school. And also try to do the background stuff, handle all of those logistics, because one thing you don't want to do is tell people we're going on a field trip and you don't give them any more details after that. No parent can make assumptions, no student can make assumptions. We can't figure it out without you. So provide them with an itinerary. um, Me particular, I give them what and where, what time we're loading the buses, where the buses are going to be. Don't assume that they know it's going to be at the bus ramp. When you're going to pull out. Is breakfast, lunch, or dinner included, and where you're stopping with the addresses. Another thing that you want to be specific on is your address for your hotel, your address for your end location, phone numbers. Be as detailed as you possibly can. If there are a place that you know that you're going to stop at a certain time, I would say stop for restroom every 2 hours at the most. And when you're planning, it's just typical things that you want to think through, and always have someone look at it just in case you've missed something. Of course, you got to know what group. When you're getting ready to go on that one field trip, make sure you set parameters on who's eligible to go. You don't want to take a child that's been in ISS 5 times for fighting on a trip with you. You don't want to take a student that typically talks back to teachers and they're getting assigned, ISS for doing things disruptively, because you might have chaperones going. So you want to make sure that you set some parameters, set some eligibility factors on who can go on this trip. If you have a troublesome child, you can always ask and request their parent to be their particular chaperone if you really think they would benefit from this experience. So there's ways around, selecting the students that could go, but just make sure that you set your own parameters on what you can handle and the manpower that you have for yourself on this trip. And of course, the cost. From experience, I know to always include food. Always include food. Of course, transportation should be a given. And if you're staying overnight, unless there are some special circumstances, always provide shelter as well. And when I say food, I mean breakfast, lunch, and dinner, even a snack if you have to, because the last thing you need is for a child to spend over their budget and you're on those last days or that last meal and they don't have any funds. So the more meal tickets or the more inclusive type deals you can get with your hotel room, do that, because those logistics matter. Parents have an ease of mind to know that their child's meals, if nothing else, is paid for. Everything else is just, extra. One major trip here in Georgia that I know particularly that you're going to participate in, and it's an overnight trip, so it's something that you should want to plan as soon as you can. That's Allstate and sixth grade honor course. It takes place in Athens, Georgia. If you will, just check the Georgia Music Educators Association website for audition details. This is something that you want to focus on at the beginning of the year. District honor choir usually happens within your particular district, so get with those choral leaders in your district through GMEA, and you'll be able to find out information about that. Sometimes it could be overnight, and sometimes it may be right down the street from your school. And if the trip is overnight, make sure you know your district or your school's requirements, because sometimes there's different tapes to cross, and I's to T's and I's to dot when you're dealing with overnight. So just make sure that you check with your principal and know those parameters for those overnight trips. Then the money part. Get help from sponsors and parents. There are three main sources that I know we need. We always need money. And if someone is willing to pay for a student to attend a special field trip, or someone's able to give donations, grab them. Make a letter, send it out, get approval, because districts are different, but always see if you can get help from anyone. It may be a parent of the students that are going, or it may be a parent that's just willing to give money because they can. Always ask for donations of food, water, snacks. Get help from parents to serve if need be on a field trip. You need those extra set of hands, because you can't do it all. So whenever you have a trip, especially if it's hot outside or if you're performing, have parents bring water. Have a cooler, have ice in it. have them dump them in there. It's always good to have your make sure your kids are hydrated. You never know what could happen. And lastly, got to get some chaperones secured. um, it helps you have the ability to put your kids in small groups. Usually my chaperones handle about 7 to 10 kids each. Your parents can help you with cleaning up, if you ate somewhere or if you're in a particular venue. And of course, if you're doing something with your big group of students, always good to have one parent that can escort a student to the restroom or escort them to the bus because they left something. It's just always better to have more adults, so that you can have those extra set of eyes. And of course, once the field trip is definitely planned and secured, make sure that you have permission forms and medical information. You want to be able to get in touch with that parent as soon as possible should something happen. You need to know what you need to be aware of when you're dealing with students. I would make sure that if there's a medical situation, your chaperone who's over that student is aware. It's just always good to make sure you have as much information about your students and parents on that permission form when needed. Now, some people choose to have a paper copy in a notebook. I'm one of those people. And some teachers have their permission forms. They're able to do them digitally now. A Google form is possible. It's free, and you can totally have parents fill those out. But whatever the case, make sure you have that information. And then encourage the buddy system and frequent check-ins. If you're on a field trip, like in a theme park or something of that nature, set up a particular time that you want your students to meet up, either with their chaperones or as a full group. Get a phone number. Make sure your chaperones have phone numbers um, provided for those students that they're overseeing. And then you could even have a communication check-in. I stole this off the internet, this picture, but I have a selfie system. My students would meet up, for example, at 1 o'clock. And the next hour at 2 o'clock, instead of meeting up, they'll send a selfie, especially when you're at a theme park, because kids are normally in line a lot and for very long times. So I would say, okay, well, send a selfie to your chaperone at 2 o'clock. My chaperone will send a message to me. Group checked in, everybody's safe. 3 o'clock, then we meet in person. So change it up a little bit. Just make sure you also have your students know they can never go anywhere alone. Always encourage them to have the buddy system where they're walking together. Um, and lastly, know where your bus and driver and your bus will be. Emergencies arise. There may have been something left on the bus, or you may have to leave early. So always make sure that you're able to contact your bus driver and know how to locate your bus. Be sure to tune in continuously because we do have webinar B coming up, where I talk about how you can easily plan a concert. Thanks again for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you in webinar B.